Cleveland Browns have hired former Ravens offensive coordinator Todd Monken, which means he won't be going to New York to be the Giants' offensive coordinator. Instead, he'll be leaving Baltimore to become the next head coach of the Cleveland Browns, who chose Monken over the Rams' passing game coordinator Nate Scheelhaase and over their own defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz, which creates its own set of issues. But the Ravens have locked in on the offensive side of the football. By bringing in Monken, they have somebody to run their offense and not have to worry about going out to get a coach that they feel like could elevate the offense. They feel like their defense is strong enough to go on. They'd like to bring back Jim Schwartz, even if he doesn't want to be back right now. But they wanted somebody to help elevate the offense. They believe Todd Monken will be able to do that for the Browns instead of the New York Giants this year. And so they have now hired Todd Monken as the next head coach of the Cleveland Browns.
Adam with us all show long. Interesting so far. For the majority, we've seen these teams go with experience for these head coaching jobs. Hawk and Dan here. Hawk, what do you think of Monken's fit for the Browns, specifically an organization you know well?
Yeah, I think it fits for what they're doing now. I think Monken's a good coach, right? Like, I think even with his offense, and you saw with Lamar, you've seen it at his height when Lamar was an MVP and they had one of the top offenses. And you've seen it sputter a little bit after Lamar got hurt and, some of the back channel issues. But the thing about Monken is he has familiarity with the organization, was an offensive coordinator there. And I think for what he does offensively and what the Browns have done traditionally is they're making the personnel decisions. They're hopeful that they can have a defensive coordinator like Schwartz stick around. I guess that remains to be seen. But if you know that's taken care of, personnel is taken care of. We need a head coach who can command a room, has been coaching in the NFL for a long time, and then 3 words: development of offense, elevation of offense, and stability of offense. And that puts them closer than where they were previously if they can do those things.
The initial reaction I had when I saw the news break was, whew, what a massive loss for the Giants.
Yeah.
What a massive loss for the New York Giants. We'll get into that. For the Browns, Monken's a good coach. It feels cautious. It feels a little bit scared. That those two things can be the case. This is an organization that had the opportunity. I can't imagine what it's like to be a Browns fan because it had the opportunity to let's do something different. Let's do something that maybe other people aren't trying. And I understand the fear of maybe hiring someone that might be too young because I remember when Joe Brady was starting to get interviews, it was his Rolodex isn't big enough with assistants. I remember when Kevin Demoff hired Sean McVay and hearing him verbally say, I might be a year or two early, but
really
I could not
was
wait.
there a Joe Brady or a potential Sean McVay in this cycle?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Grant Udinski, who I understand goes back to Jacksonville, Scheelhaase from L.A. It was just the opportunity to maybe do something that gives Cleveland Browns fans some hope of, all right, I have no idea if this is going to be good or the right choice, but there was maybe some excitement. You're attached. I mean, is there excitement? That doesn't mean it won't work out.
I think it varies across the board. I feel like, to your point, you go into the process early on. Monken was a guy that not a lot of people requested interviews for, but the Browns were very early in their interest with him. I mean, they requested that when he was still a Baltimore Raven. So that gave you some inclination that it was something that they were really considering, based on probably their experience with him in the building. From a fan perspective, I don't know if there was going to be a hire with the options that they had available to him. That was going to bring an excitement.
Sure.
And that is the Cleveland Brown fan experience, and rightfully so, based on the results that haven't been there.
Before Shefty gets in, don't you believe, though, that the team, and I know it sounds outrageous, is a little bit closer to being respectable than maybe the national narrative? The defense is loaded. Offensive talent's missing.
Well, what do you do about quarterback? I mean,
that's going to be a huge part of this, and how much Monken wants. Is it Shador? Is it Gabriel? Is it one of those 2 first-round picks?
Well, that's the point. They have a really great young offensive core. You see the running backs. You see the tight end. Monken runs a ton of 21 personnel and does that really, really well. I think for the Cleveland Browns, it's like if we can keep our defense the way it is, which is one of the tops in the league, and we can have a head coach who, again, can command, keep the stability that you've had in some respects in the locker room, but elevate this offense to get the most out of the tools that they have and the players that they have. That's what's been missing. I do think that there was more meat on the bone offensively for the Cleveland Browns over the past years, even if it wasn't a bunch of world-beating talent. And I think that's what the Browns are after, somebody who can stabilize that piece of their team.
Yeah, going to be interesting to see about the quarterback angle of this. Adam, you heard Dan say his first reaction was about the Giants side of this. What do you expect the Giants to do now when it comes to that OC position?
Well, it's interesting, right? Because I think a couple of these teams are in this situation. The New York Giants thought there was a real possibility that Todd Monken would be their offensive coordinator. So they're out now looking at names and candidates that can come in and take over this job. The Baltimore Ravens at one point thought that Joe Brady would be a possibility. He got the Buffalo Bills head coaching job, so he's not going to Baltimore. So the Ravens are looking. So it's interesting to me right now. We've got the Ravens searching for an offensive coordinator and their former head coach, John Harbaugh, searching for an offensive coordinator at the same time. And we also have a team in the Cleveland Browns here that hired a coach who's going to be 60 years old on February 5th. The only time he's ever been a head coach was in college in 2013 to 15 for Southern Mississippi. That's his only head coaching experience. He has not been a head coach in the NFL level. It's something he's always wanted to do. He's wanted to be a head coach. He has essentially aspired for this day. He was actually a finalist for the University of Michigan head coaching job that went to Kyle Whittingham last month. And so this is a situation where basically Todd Monken has got the chance of a lifetime, and where we've seen the Pittsburgh Steelers hire a veteran in Mike McCarthy, and we saw what it meant for him to get that job in the city that he was from. I think Todd Monken is going to be similarly moved by finally getting a head coaching job near the age of 60 in Cleveland, and brings a lot of veteran experience to that franchise now.
So in relation to the Giants, because I do think this is massively impactful for them. This is a significant loss for Jackson Dart. I think the first call that I think the Giants have to make is now to Mike LaFleur, little brother of Matt, who's I know in the conversation for Arizona, was with the New York Jets. I want that type of system, and if he's willing, because he's a lateral move, but he doesn't call the plays in LA, okay? So Mike LaFleur would be one. I think the second name that we'll probably hear is Charlie Weiss Jr., who was the play caller at Ole Miss. And I love Charlie Weiss Jr. I think he's brilliant. How much does he really have a feel for NFL offense? I think those are worthy, at least, questions and concerns that have to be asked. Nate Scheelhaus, Davis Webb. So those would be like the 3 or 4 names that if you're the Giants, it becomes a thing of urgency right now that you can't miss out on other names now. I
hear you on Charlie Weiss Jr. And listen, I'm not saying he's not going there, but I was with him for like a 3-week stretch during the college football playoff. He was adamant that his next stop at LSU is where he wants to be, and Lane Kiffin's done a lot to try to hold on to him there. But the pairing back up with Jackson Dart is interesting. Let's dial in on the head coaching carousel situation. I should say the coordinator situation with Brian Daboll landing in Tennessee and Mike McDaniel with the Chargers. The pool of offensive coordinators dwindling, and the Eagles are still looking for someone to replace Kevin Patullo, who was fired after the season. So Adam and Sal back in here. And Adam, we start with you first. Who are the Eagles talking to about this OC job?
Well, they might not be the big names that Sal in Philadelphia will like, but they've spent the last couple of days talking to Jim Bob Cooter of the Indianapolis Colts, and they've spoken today to Sean Mannion, the Green Bay Packers quarterbacks coach, who a lot of people believe has a bright coaching future, and they're looking for the right fit for one of these jobs. They've been through any number of candidates. They don't appear to be in any rush to name somebody. They have Nick Sirianni, who always could call the offense if they can't find somebody worthy of doing the job, but they're being diligent, looking for the right match. And also, again, the fit is not for everybody, as we've seen. Some people have taken other jobs. Some people have pulled out of consideration. It's not for everybody, but they think there are enough good candidates out there that they're going to come out of this with a good, strong offensive coordinator.
Yeah, I'm interested in that. It's just the structure, the hierarchy underneath Sirianni, or what's the deal there, Sal, with why this is taking so long to fill from what you know?
Well, I don't think it's taking too long. I think Adam is correct. They want to take their time and want to get it right. The names that Adam just mentioned may not be household names, but they are offensive coordinators that will open up this offense for Jalen Hurts, make it more dynamic. Also, let him be under center where he is much more effective. This is something that Dan Orlovsky has talked about all year long on NFL Live. When he's under center, Jalen Hurts is a more effective, more efficient, more productive quarterback. So you want a guy who's going to come in there and coach Jalen Hurts, a Super Bowl MVP, who's done it all in his career, and now he gets another offensive coordinator in his ear calling plays. That's 11 different guys calling plays in his ear in the last 10 years. I don't know any other quarterback in the history of the league who has gone through what Jalen Hurts has had to go through. So you got to coach up Jalen Hurts, make the offense more dynamic, more challenging, more complex for NFL defenses. You got to work with Nick Sirianni. You got to work with the best offensive line coach in the league in Jeff Stoutland. You have the best GM in the league in Howie Roseman. You have an owner in Jeffrey Lurie who's willing to pay anything to get the best team on the field. So it's a great situation if you can make it fit. But as Adam mentioned at the top of the show, now you got the Giants looking for an OC, the Jets, the Eagles, the Baltimore Ravens. You basically go from the Holland Tunnel all the way to the Francis Scott Key Bridge down I-95, and you could interview for 4 different jobs. You'd wear out your Easy Pass.
I like that. A little geography lesson from Sal Pal. Oh, my goodness. The best. Okay. Appreciate you, Sal Pal. Adam, you're sticking around. The GOAT. We got a couple GOATs. Actually, you know what? You guys are GOATs, too. I'm not going to leave you out of that. Dan, is this a desirable job?
Of course it's a desirable job. It's also a needle in a haystack. You have to, one, obviously be very good at the job, be very good at play call and play design. 2, I don't believe it should be your first time being a play caller because of obviously the experience that they're coming off of last year. 3, you better be tough. You better be able to handle noise and criticism. We know the stories of the passion of the fan base and what happened with Kevin Patullo and his house and family. 4, don't leave. This can't be someone who's like, hey, I'm coming here for a year and going to try to springboard into a job. So I just think like this is a needle in a haystack that has to have just so many bullet points that are very difficult to find all 4 in one person.
Yeah, I think it is a tough job. I do. And not because it's not a great situation, great organization, obviously a very talented team. I think there's a high upside with little margin of error. And that's what we've seen over the last few years, right? You have an offensive room with a ton of playmakers, but also a ton of personalities. So what does success look like? When things are going well and maybe you're running the football really well, are there people upset you're not passing it enough?
But success looks like a head coach, Shane Steichen, Kellen Moore.
Absolutely. That's exactly it. It's kind of a zero-sum game. Yeah. Either you become a head coach or you become the topic of every football show every single day when you show any sign of struggle, right? And so for offensive coordinators who have maybe some options, maybe some other talented, offensive personnel and organizations, is this the job that they want? Yeah. That's the question I would have.
What do we think about Sirianni potentially calling plays if they had to just get somebody in there who wasn't going to be the play caller? Would that be the right answer?
He's an offensive-minded head coach. I don't know the last time Nick Sirianni called plays. I would hope that Philadelphia would have a different plan. Yeah. He seems to be best in that role. I would imagine that there will be a different plan.
All right, we'll keep an eye on that one. And again, as Sal illustrated, there's a lot of these OC jobs that are open and in similar areas of the country.